Thank you, everyone, for joining. This is the first AMA of the Sprawl. So, how this is going to work is that we gathered just a few questions that the community has posted on the questions channel, and then the team will answer those for you. And then, if we happen to have some time at the end, then we'll also open the stage, and you can just come up, ask whatever question. Like, we're pretty open. Ask us anything. It's all good. And we'll just chat a little bit. So this is we're shooting for around an hour, and then that's probably sufficient. And then in the future, we'll definitely have more AMA. So if not everything was covered, it's certainly not a big issue. So before we get into it, maybe just a small introduction here from the founders, just so that you know what they're about, kind of what their role is in the sprawl, and then after that we'll start tackling some questions. So maybe let's start with you, Robin. Maybe just give a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah, hey everyone. So I'm Robin. I've been in games now for the past 10 years. Don't know where three came from. Over 10 years. I previously used to work with Rovio, the developers of Angry Birds. I was their director of marketing and also their director of consumer engagement in the company. And I later joined a company called PlayRaven, where I was director of marketing and business development there. And that's where I met Paul as well, and Stas, our other two co-founders, and founded BlackBlock.
Perfect.
And I'm the CEO of the company. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
That's a lot important. Anyway, so Paul, you want to go for it?
Hi. Yes, okay. Hi, I'm Paul. Nice to meet everybody. I'm the CPO of BlackBlock. I've been working in games since the 90s, various roles, designer, artist, sort of producer. Used to work at Psygnosis, Rockstar, where I worked on GTA for about 7 years, DMA design before that on GTA. Then various companies, creative director at Crytek. I worked at Spicy Horse, the development director. I worked at PlayRaven with Robin as a game lead, and then since then we've been working on BlackBlock. Hello.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. And there's a obviously the team is much larger, and eventually we'll kind of do a little nice bio with each team member so that you guys can see exactly who's on the team, what their experience is like, because it's truly an amazing team. As you guys can tell, that we're just not the typical kind of NFT project, but that will come later on. So yeah, let's just start getting to some of the questions. These are questions that have been posted in the question channel. So the first one comes from Denver, and he just says that you are the most genuine and pleasant team that I've ever seen in the NFT space. She's very nice, so thank you, Denver.
And clearly he doesn't know Paul, but yes.
Yeah,
Good
obviously.
Nice.
So his first question is how to get whitelisted, and I can cover that, and that's a question that comes up all the time. First of all, there's a nice little whitelist channel which you can check, which has a bunch of information. But long story short, you can get whitelisted by participating in the community events that we run. We already ran a fair bit of them. We ran an Easter egg, and we kind of do some quizzes and trivias and things like that. And we're still going to run quite a few more until the mint. So like a lot of people are worried that they don't have whitelist and they want to get it. You still have plenty of opportunities, don't worry. And we're also running collaborations with other projects as well, which is an opportunity for you to get them. Also from Denver, he has a bunch of questions. So the second one is, will there be a public mint? And yes, there is. So, we do have the whitelist, but that's not going to fill out all the spots. So even if you don't manage to get the whitelist until the mint, that's fine. As long as you're fast enough, you can probably still get the NFT. At least in theory, there's spots for it. So the whitelist is not allocated. That's a question that has been coming up a lot. So, still from Denver, he has 4 questions. So, the third one is, will there be any legendary NFTs? And I'll delegate this to Robin.
Yeah, so largely all the Sprawl passes, all the city passes will be the same, with the exception of a second tier, which will be a second sort of legendary tier, and it will be highly limited. And we won't say much more on that for now. There will be an upcoming announcement on that.
Right. So make sure to stay tuned. That should come out very, very soon, and it'll be quite exciting. So last question from Denver. Is there any info on the token and when it will be released? And this is a good question for Paul.
Okay, that is a good question. So the use of tokens in the game is something we're still actively working on. So I'm not going to go too deep into the specifics of that, but I can talk somewhat to the intentions of it. So on the one hand, there's spending in the game. We have a lot of things to spend on, but the token will be for the more high value sort of stuff that you might want. And then the other part really is the governance. So we're very interested in governance as a concept. Token holders will have voting rights within their district. This is it's a form of utility that we haven't seen in any of the games. I mean, you might have governance tokens in Web3 projects that are about sort of company roadmaps or whatever, but here we really want to put governance at the heart of the game to form a kind of a player democracy, if you like. So owning those tokens is going to give you all sorts of decision-making powers within the city, within your space, your district, where you can change the tax rate, or you can vote on which buildings are being built or destroyed or upgraded, etc., etc. So really, the tokens will form political power for players in the game. They're going to be deep at the heart of the system. As for when they're going to be released, that's definitely not imminent. It's still something we're working on, as I say. But there will be more details released to the community in good time when we have more to share.
Right, perfect. And I think it's really hard for us to kind of properly emphasize how much of a big deal the governance is, because a lot of projects use governance as like a last resort utility because they don't have anything else to offer. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have a lot of value for the user, which is quite different in the Sprawl, because in the Sprawl it does have a lot of value and directly influences the gameplay and kind of what is happening with your immediate community. So it's easy to kind of discredit how important it is, but given how the game is being built, it is quite valuable.
Yeah, you're not governing the project, you're governing the world.
Yes.
Right.
The game world.
It's a form of group agents, basically.
Exactly. So
community power.
That's true. Community power. So another question this is a different person now, called Limitless. And he asks, what can I do with the Genesis collection? You want to take this one, Robin?
Yeah, so the most immediate benefit that the Genesis collection will give you will be priority whitelist for the upcoming job avatar NFT drop, which will be dropping next year. Outside of that, there will be other perks, some of which have already been announced on the Medium. So there will be private forums for holders. And there will be, we're in a lot of talks with other projects. And so there will be a lot of access to future collaborations and partnerships with those as well. But I think the thing to reiterate with the City Pass too is this is kind of like your first step, your first entry point into the Sprawl and into what we're building with the project. And it's, this is a long project, it's an ambitious project. And so there's going to be many perks and benefits down the line that this pass will bring you.
Right. Awesome. And if you haven't read the kind of the Medium article that we released like a couple of days ago, I highly recommend reading it, because we kind of go through about how the collection is going to work and kind of what the plans are. And also we will be releasing more details until the mint date. So another question, also from Limitless. What inspired you to start the game, Paul?
Right. Well, that's a good question. That's a very broad question.
Right.
I'll have a crack at that. So, well, I mean, the simple answer, I guess, is it's a lot of things that we like. We like cities, and we like people and communities, and we like pop culture, and we like freedom in games, and we like the real world. Um, I always think the real world is such an interesting place that you don't really need to invent anything almost. I've worked on a few open world cities, and they've tended over time to get bigger rather than deeper. You drive past all these buildings, but these buildings don't do anything, and you're playing them very much as a single player. But cities are kind of the opposite of single player experiences. I mean, cities are massively multiplayer, and they're built upon all these systems, and it seems like a very, very good fit for a game, basically. So, I mean, for myself, I always wanted to play inside a city that actually works like a city, that has functional city systems kind of underpinning it. So I can go and I can do jobs, and those jobs affect things, and it's persistent, and it when you do something, it stays done. Um, so it's almost, I guess, not just an open world city, but an open world society. It's people interacting within the context of this city. And to me, that's a very exciting notion. It's definitely a space that's not been explored too heavily before. And of course, with the Web3 stuff, it's given us access to some very interesting ideas as well. We're very interested in the idea of player agency and what players can decide on as groups as well as individuals, and how communities can develop that space. And we're also very interested in the idea of ownership. These concepts, they fit very, very well with this notion of this open world city where you can own your home, you can own your vehicles and your furniture and all this kind of stuff. And you also get to vote on the things that matter to you. You get to create your little micro societies, and your society might be very different to the people like 200 meters down the road. So, to me, we're kind of building the thing I want to play mainly. It's just a game I really want to play, apart from anything else.
Well, you're doing this wrong. You should do the play just to get some money from selling NFTs and then just run away.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Well,
Need to
and
go revisit that
So if you
strategy.
guys want to add something there, that was
No,
my
I mean,
take.
I think you touched on it, pretty much everything. I think the thing worth pointing out is that we've been on a mission to build, to really push the boundaries of open worlds, and to build what we believe is the next gen of online open worlds. For a while now, this is not our first rodeo. We've been through multiple cycles and iterations on this, and one of the core tenets that we've had the whole way through is that governance, ownership, and sort of player-driven economies are things we've always been passionate about, even before Web3 games were a thing, right? And we were trying to even execute this in Web2. And so I think in many ways we've been ahead of the curve. And Web3 just gives us a great framework to execute on this vision that we have for a massive open world city.
perfect. Yeah, that's exactly right. And also it's kind of a follow-up question to the previous one, even though Paul already covered it a fair bit. But basically, another question of his is what do you think is missing in this space right now, Paul?
I don't think anything's missing so much as it's just really early. I mean, basically, there's a lot of new frontier opened up with Web3, and people are making their first steps into it. And of course, there'll be mistakes, and of course, some people are sort of relying on past models and evolving through those. But there's just an awful lot of space to run into. It's not a matter of missing; it's a matter of this is a very broad church, and this is the bit that we are exploring.
Right. That's a very good point. I think the fact that Web3 is so new, and it's just such a new industry overall, and the new technology even, that a lot of times people are a bit too harsh on it. Things take time to develop, and for things to spread out, and for niches to be filled in. Basically, it just takes time, and it's not something that you can expect to happen overnight. Um,
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, we experienced previous companies, right? And it was companies transitioning from premium games to free to play games. And, there's a lot of commonalities between the things that those companies were going through as they were sort of entering into this new burgeoning mobile free to play market, and the things companies are going through now as they start to transition into Web3.
Right. That's actually very interesting. Like that's actually a parallel that I never considered before. That kind of venturing in a new space, you can actually definitely make the parallel of even kind of different aspects of Web 2, sorry, not just from Web 2 to Web 3, but kind of paradigm shifts within Web 2, like the mobile craze that we went through. That's actually a great point. Were you actually were you did you witness kind of that paradigm shift, Robin, or were you kind of already into it?
No, no, I had a front row seat to it all play out, and I think that I think one thing I'm sure people are aware of in with Web3 is not everyone is on board, and especially not all traditional game developers are on board, and there's a lot of pushback when, for instance, Ubisoft announces that they're doing something with NFTs from not only consumers, not only players, but also the developers themselves that are expected to work on this stuff. And that was exactly the same. You can draw one-to-one parallels with mobile free-to-play. Not everyone was, when free-to-play came about, traditional game developers weren't like, oh, great, I can't wait to work with this. There was a lot of pushback. A lot of people weren't happy about it, and they felt like it compromised their creative vision a lot. And now, you don't see that anymore. So you can see a lot of these parallels really with how people had to, the hurdles people had to go to transition into Web 2, to free to play, and now the hurdles they're going through to transition into Web 3. And also, just the radical shift in thinking with business models, right? Going from selling a packaged premium product or a sort of a premium product with one fee attached to it, to going to building a service. That required not only people to be committed to that transition, but it also required a lot of rethinking in terms of how you approach games and how you approach building these games as services and how you scale them on the marketing side and so on. But yeah, so I mean, I won't go into too much details on the companies I was at, but yeah, it was always it was something I was very much in the middle of as it happened.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, and that's definitely a great parallel that I think a lot of people don't easily make. A lot of times we view kind of this transition, I suppose, or at least this new opportunity of Web3 as being something special, when in fact the industry has kind of kind of navigated through these type of things before. But anyway, like just coming back to the question so that we don't deviate too much. So here's one from ATF. 81. What kind of advantage, if any, will the higher tier NFTs have over the lesser tiers? Robin, you want to answer?
Yeah. So, I probably said too much already when I mentioned that there was a higher tier of NFT. I don't know if this question is referring to specifically what I just mentioned, or if they had another. If they had something broader in mind, just sort of general higher tiers or whatever. But I guess the short answer is we will share more on that later. There is an upcoming announcement about the very, very highly limited passes that will exist. And one of the perks in particular is very, very cool. And I suppose that's all I should say.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I know. There's not a lot of information right now, but I promise that it will come. Just be patient. So here's a good question from Rocco, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. So he asks, there seems to be an economics behind revealing NFTs after launch. I have noticed that after the reveal, the less rare NFTs tend to drive the floor price, which is usually lower when compared to the floor price before the reveal. So his question is, how do you plan to tackle this problem? Maybe you can answer it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously aware that this can and does happen. We've been, we're holders of many other projects that exist in the Web3 gaming space, so kind of have a front row seat to it as well. With the city passes, they're mostly all the same tier, so this shouldn't be an issue. They're all, very pretty looking city passes, and they're all the same. And really, you can just think of the city passes as your foot in the door to the Sprawl and to the project. And from that point onwards, really, it's going to be our work that does the talking. It's going to be our future drops that does the talking. It's going to be our reveals, our footage, and all of the announcements that we have coming over the course of this long and ambitious project. I will say, though, that, I mentioned that we'll have a job avatar NFT drop next year, for instance. And I think it's just like, these will be varying tiers. The answer I gave regarding the city passes doesn't quite apply to perhaps some of the future jobs that we have planned. But the thing that I should just touch upon is that it's inconceivable to us that there will be a discrepancy in the quality between the tiers of the NFTs, right? Like the way we're approaching this is that the bar for quality and sort of how we think about the utility that we provide on the NFTs with the future game utility is high, and I guess the work will do the talking. When you see what these NFTs look like, you'll realize that they're basically all very of a very high quality, and so really it's ultimately going to be the market that decides, but our project and the ambition level of our project that's going to be impacting how the market decides.
Right. Awesome. And yeah, I really don't think that this will be like a big issue compared to what most projects, go through. Like you said, obviously this for the city pass, this is not an issue at all, but even for the future job drop, the art is amazing. And on top of it, it has, real utility. Like if you believe in the project, then you certainly don't want to get rid of it for just a quick buck. So and I guess it's worth mentioning, there's the stuff in the pipe that we have seen that we have not necessarily revealed just yet, and so we have a very high degree of confidence and conviction behind what we're building, not only because of our experience and ambition level, but because of what we've already seen already. And as we start to share more video content, more sort of behind the scenes content, and of course art of the drops themselves, I think that will become clear, and that will impact the floor price anyway, in a positive way, I might add. Right. All right. So now some questions from Talented. That's his username. Number 1, will the game be playable on mobile? Paul.
Okay, so that's yes and no. So if you think about it this way, the city itself lives on a server, and the city is persistent. So whatever's happening there, all the devices that you might play it on are just windows on that city. And that city is kind of spewing out data. You can drive around it. So the actual driving part, which is much more intensive in terms of requirements for computing power, that would be PC led. But that would not stop you interacting with all the other systems in the city via, for example, a mobile app or the web. So you could make voting decisions, or you could sort of sift through data, or communicate with your different groups in the game via mobile, via web. You're not going to be able to drive around in 3D on mobile, if that answers the question. So yes and no.
Yeah, I can add something to that. I guess cross-platform doesn't have to be the exact same experience across every platform and device. That's certainly not how we see it. We instead take a sort of platform native entry point view into what we're building, right? We have an online city, and each platform can have its own unique interface into that city that is tailored to how people typically use those devices, whether that's Twitch streams, whether it's mobile, whether it's a game running on PC or console or whatever.
Right. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think that's the most important to highlight is that the underlying uh, game will be available. It just kind of varies how you interact with it depending on the platform that you're using because each one has its own limitations and nuances to take into account, of course.
Just think of each platform as a window into the same world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Different window into the same world.
Right.
Yeah.
All right then. So another question, still by Talented. Could my NFT represent my person in game? Robin, you want to take this one?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So, well, I don't know. I guess people have seen some of the art from some of the NFT job avatars that's been shared on our Discord. And so for that to happen, you'd need to kind of have that 2D character represented in the 3D world as a 3D character avatar. And so, that's an interesting question, and I'll just leave that hanging there. And I guess what I will say is, if you're serious about your identity in the sprawl and existing in the sprawl, then you probably want to hold on to your job avatar if you get one. I'm being a bit cryptic.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not.
People will decide. All right then.
Nothing.
Paul, you are the
Yes.
token. You are the token person. So, you already covered a lot, but just in case there's something else you want to add, his question is: what are the ways that the token can be useful?
Did you just describe me as the token person?
I did. I'm sorry.
Okay, so yeah, it's okay. It's fine. Okay, well, I guess we covered this before. Just to reiterate, so I mean, we're still very much working on this stuff, but the intention is the token can be spent on certain kinds of transactions within the game, and it will be used for governance, for the kind of democratic voting system that is in the center of every district, where you can make decisions about what your community is doing and where they can go.
Right. And it's also worth having that a lot of people kind of get obsessed about, how the token is going to work and the tokenomics and so forth. But with early projects, it's very normal that these things are in progress. So like we'll be keeping, working on it, updating it. We're working with experts in tokenomics and economics to make sure that this is the best that it can be. And, the white paper will be updated over time as these things are developed.
Yes, the white paper is very much a live document. There will be more to come for that.
Right.
And both experts, not only in tokenomics, but just game economy experts, right, as well, because there's a lot of learnings you can take from just traditional game economies that can probably benefit the tokenomics of these games.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Indeed, an economy is an economy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Another one, just to make sure that we can still have some time for the open stage if anyone wants to come. So regarding the jobs in the sprawl, can I choose to be anything in the game, and can I earn through it? Paul.
Well, within reason, you can be anything in the game. Yes. So, I mean, the whole purpose of this society thing is that basically we have an ecosystem of jobs. So players do jobs. It's pretty much like real life. You do a job, you get paid. You go and spend your disposable income on stuff. So there's no restriction on what you can do in the game. There's no job that you can't do. You can come in as long as you got the vehicle to do that job, then you can just go and do it. And we have all sorts of stuff. We have stuff like sort of delivery and firemen and policemen and sort of garbage guys and whatever jobs you can think of in a normal city. We have a whole ecosystem of that stuff. And the whole point is it's functional and the economy is underpinned and driven by people actually doing jobs. We've always been very fascinated with the whole culture of people doing sort of real world jobs in video games. There's a lot of this stuff now. You can find farming simulators or bus driver simulators, all this kind of stuff. But these are all very sort of closed off systems. So really one of the big things we're playing with is putting all these jobs together in an ecosystem where they all interact with each other, where the whole system is driven by that. And also, we're really interested in the whole like the GTA role play thing that you see, where people really inhabit those roles, where people can find um, some pride in their job, if you like. They can become that taxi driver, they can become that fireman, and that's something we're really interested in, sort of helping people to facilitate. So, you can crawl up the career ladder in any given job. You can become the best garbage guy in New Motor City. You can become the best cop. There's a whole career path for all of those things. But yes, jobs are really at the heart of the system, and you can do any of them. And you can earn. You earn salary by doing jobs.
Perfect. I really like kind of the analogy that you made to the simulators, because that's so true, that they're so popular now, but they're always hyper specific, right? Like you do one thing and you're supposed to to grind that forever. And there's certainly an appeal to it, but to me it just strikes me as more fun if all those things are incorporated, right? So like you can specialize if you want, but it's not the only thing, right? You have a variety of options available too.
Absolutely. It's the connections that make it interesting. It's all those things together interacting with each other.
Right. So, last question from Talented. How long has the game been in development phase? Robin, this is a good one for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we can say officially it's been in development since the best part of 2022, so this year. Um, I guess it's worth mentioning that, this is not our first rodeo when it comes to building open worlds. We founded Black Block 4 years ago with the mission to build next gen online worlds. And we've been on that mission for a while, back when no one else was trying to build these kinds of experiences, and when investors perhaps didn't want it, when the market didn't want it. So we were very much ahead of the curve. And so we've had, our experience spans across multiple projects where we've really just been focused on just trying to push the boundaries of what it means to exist in one of these virtual online spaces as much as we can. Primarily that's been in Web 2. But really this year we've been taking a lot of our learnings from previous projects, the design, the tech, into this project. So it might be that we've only been focused on this for 2022, but really there's a lot of work from prior that we're bringing into this project with us from previous years.
Okay, perfect. And I think it's really valuable how kind of our previous experience, even before the Sprawl, because if you're coming new to something, you're gonna make a bunch of mistakes, right? That's kind of just part of the journey. But as you mentioned, it's not the first rodeo, so we do definitely have a lot of experience and all of that is being carried over to Sprawl, even if Sprawl in itself has this like isolated game, isn't super old, but we're still gonna carry that experience into it.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that it's that we were working in Web 2, and I
Right.
think and I think like building a online open economy, open world in mobile free to play, it can be extremely challenging, right? Like the market is quite stagnant. A lot of the games that are successful in mobile free to play often rely on are very derivative and rely on very specific like funnel design and first time user experiences. And so really for us, like Web3 has provided like the perfect framework for us to build something that's a bit more open and a bit more ambitious, and puts the community at the heart of it. And so, for us, I think like, we've just had conviction for what we're building now for the past few years. And really the market has shifted in our favor now, where Web3 gaming exists and where we have a great framework to deliver on what we've always been trying to deliver on.
Right. All right. So now there's a question from Pygauss, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. If I'm not, my apologies. So he asks, I'm curious as to what the anti-cheat will be implemented, because I think in a game where people can earn assets that represent real value, this is more important than before. So what is the anti-cheat you guys will be implementing into this game? And even though this is not a token question, I'll still delegate this to Paul.
I'm not just a token person. So, yeah, I'm not sure I entirely understand all of this question. I'll have a crack at it. So, I mean, certainly for anything like smart contracts, we'll be having those fully audited by external auditors before anything goes live. So we'll be making sure that stuff is all tight. We'll take whatever anti-cheat stuff is required of us. From an asset point of view, if that's the kind of the angle of the question, the things that you own in the game, important things like your home or your vehicles, they're not there to be stolen. There's no mechanism within the game where people could steal your car or they could break into your home and steal the contents or whatever. That's not a thing in the game. So you can be sure if you've actually earned or spent on an asset such as a home or vehicle or an avatar, nobody will be stealing it via the game.
Right.
Does that, I don't know, does that cover it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's good. Although there is kind of elements, kind of in the game that you can kind of consider that you're kind of stealing something. For example, like the
right,
money
yes.
going onto the bank and whatnot. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit so that people understand kind of what's the difference.
For sure. I mean, there is theft in the game, but it's not something not an NFT that you own. There'll be theft of resources in the game. The stuff that you can be carrying around, or you can be sort of like stuff that's part of the economy that you're transporting around that can be stolen by other players. But that's very much bounded within the mechanics of the game. It's not going to be something that's being stolen from you personally in that regard. So I mean, what we want to have a degree of conflict in the game. We want a degree of people being able to sort of like take the left-hand path if they want. We want a space where people can be naughty as well as nice. So we're going to try and sensibly bound that so that there's loss, but it's not like profound loss, and it's certainly not the kind of thing that is going to mean that you lose out in a big way.
Right.
It's just within the allowable space of the economy, if you like.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just to add to that, so like for example, when people are worried that if their NFT is just gonna randomly disappear because someone stole it, it's also important to remember that obviously we are bounded by the technology that we're using, and so unless it's explicitly stated, you just don't have the rights for the NFT to just randomly disappear. So obviously it's gonna follow the game design, and then on top of that, obviously we'll have the audits and whatever anti-cheat mechanisms that is needed to keep everything in check. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to this kind of anti-cheat topic, Robin.
Not that I can think of. Yeah, I mean, like we're aware of the anti-cheat software. There's companies in Finland that deal with this stuff that we know. So I mean, that's no huge issue. But I think it ultimately comes down to what Paul was saying in terms of like what you can steal and what you can't steal, and how players can impact the game for each other. And I think it ultimately comes down to that.
Okay, so now it's the last question, and that's by Moon Eyes. What's the team's planning on financing the development of the Sprawl game? That's probably most indicated to you, Robin.
Yeah, sure. So primarily for investment, we're backed by Play Ventures, as I mentioned earlier. So Play are one of, if not the leading early stage games VCs. Many of the top projects that you will see in the Web3 space, particularly those that are backed by, that are founded by like seasoned games industry entrepreneurs, people that have worked on games before, are usually backed by Play. A lot of them as well we are collaborating with. We sort of we share a lot together. with some of these other projects. But yeah, so we're backed by Play Ventures. They're a great stamp of approval for us to have one of the leading early stage games VCs. And like with most venture-backed games companies, there will be more rounds of investment to fund the development of this game, the growth of the team, and the scaling of the game itself. That's just how it works. It's there's never a situation where someone takes one round of investment.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So that was all the questions that we had that were kind of asked beforehand on the question channel. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna open the stage. So if people want to come here and just ask some questions about the team, about the project. If you want, you can also just ask about, gaming in general or Web3 in general, just whatever you feel like it. So just raise your hands and we'll allow you on stage. I think I fixed the permissions now, so no one should just come up randomly. But all you need to do is just request it. I'll accept it. And then, you'll be able to come. So I already have one, two actually. 3 now. Okay, so I'll go by order of whoever requested, and it'll just go one by one. So that's all right. So welcome, however you pronounce your name. I have no idea. I'm sorry.
Hamzy.
All right, welcome.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
It's around like 9 a.m. for me right now, so excuse me, I'm just a little bit tired. So I guess I had a couple of questions. I found out about you guys not too long ago. I was just curious, what kind of obstacles you guys had to overcome, while creating the game, and how you guys overcame them. So what are some of the major obstacles?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. Paul, do you want to go for it?
I guess so. I like the way that you used past tense there, because we're still in development, so there's still a lot of obstacles. It's basically, what is a game? It's like a million problems to be solved, right? So the biggest thing we wanted to help early on was the networking, because that was very key to the project. So we concentrated on that very early, and we've got a networking stack that we're very confident in now. So we've had simulations of thousands of players in this space, and that was a big relief for us. I don't know, Robin. Obstacle.
Yeah, I was going to say what you said, but in a broader way, which is I kind of alluded to the fact that earlier that we've kind of been through multiple iterations of this idea, and it even extends prior to the founding of this company, right? Like myself, Paul, and Stas, we all worked together. Stas is our CTO. We all worked together at a previous company, and we were working on similar kinds of problems. We were working on how to build a massive online world, and we were just working with a different tech stack there. So even our learnings through that has informed our decisions when founding BlackBlock. Okay, well, let's not use that tech stack. Let's use this tech stack. So I think it's very, like with all game development, it's very iterative. And I used a reference to Tiago not too long ago. I was referencing Supercell. I don't know if you know those guys. They're another Finnish developer. They made a Clash of Clans. But the thing with Supercell is every time they kill a game, they open champagne and they pop some champagne and have a glass of champagne and celebrate. Because really the failures are as important as the small successes as well, right? So it's some of these things where we've learned by getting out early and trying to solve this problem early on before other people who might only be just entering into the space, and that has just informed our decisions iteratively throughout development. And so the networking is one of the main ones, the business model, right, and the design is something that's always evolving. We're always iterating on. And I suppose you could also bundle in the challenges of developing in Web3, which is still in its infancy and always evolving. And for us, we went down the rabbit hole at the start of this year, and there's something new happening every single day, right? There's always something new happening, for better or for worse. So we've had to become even more agile and even more on our toes and even more open to challenging our assumptions, right? We may start with a pre-existing set of assumptions, then something will happen in in the market, and we'll have to just question those and change those, and just
Yeah,
get
the
as
thing is
many
with this
people on the
space,
outside to challenge. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say the thing is with this space is that it's always changing and it's always evolving. So like the fact that you guys are able to
Yeah.
do that as well, and like you said, stay on your toes and be ready to move with whatever's happening is it's dope to hear.
Thanks. Yeah, and one of the one of the things that I like is I think like, there's um, with mobile free to play, there's plenty of challenges, right? There's still loads of challenges there. And I would say with Web3, there's possibly even more challenges, but in my opinion, they're more fun challenges to solve, right? I think with mobile free to play, everyone's really focused around how do we deal with Apple's IDFA changes, which sort of negatively impacts the user acquisition. How do we scale our game? How do we, profitably acquire users over Facebook, where the cost of user acquisition is constantly rising? That can be honestly like quite a demoralizing. Those can be demoralizing challenges to face when you're trying to build something awesome ultimately.
Yeah.
And I think that there's more problems in Web3, but they're more fun to solve, and we're more motivated to solve them.
Yeah, especially like you said, right? We're still in our infancy in Web3, so
For sure.
as it grows, it'll be dope to see how like gaming grows in this space as well, because that's one of the bigger things that I'm focused on in Web3 is more gaming things like you see Helix, Pirate Nation, Fables that dropped yesterday. Like those things, I find them to be really dope. Even Pixel Farmland, like all that stuff is really cool to see develop around these times. So yeah.
Yeah, I think Helix also are backed by Play, I believe.
Yes. Okay, that's cool to hear, man. No, thank you for answering my question. I did have two more. I was just going to ask if the game would be playable at launch. And another question would be what kind of projects and communities are you guys trying to collab with? Because like I did fill out the form and like I've been looking into you guys a little bit, and I just want to see if we could talk further. But yeah, so just those two questions there.
I'll tackle the collab issue, and then I'll let Paul talk about the playability around the launch. So we are accepting collabs, but just because of the nature of it, it's just very, very, very restrictive. Especially because we just get a lot of requests, and also want to make sure that kind of the overlap between the projects is ideal. And so unfortunately, there's just a lot of people that request for collaborations, but we're just not able to work it out at this time. But I think over time, once we kind of breathe a little bit, we'll be more open to it, and we'll have a bit more flexibility into the types of collaborations that we can do. But Paul can expand a bit.
No, that's
yeah, we have.
no, that's good too. That's why like I jumped in and I want to learn about what you guys are building, because at the same time I don't want to just try and collab with whoever, right? Like I want to reach out to projects who are actually building, doing something, have a reputation, are backed by doxed people, things like that, right? So it's that's good to hear. I guess I'll just wait for a response if anything, and just keep watching out.
Right, please do. I appreciate it. Paul, do you want to cover the launch issue?
Can you just repeat that one? Sorry.
No, my question was just, will the game be playable at launch?
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, I think this is an interesting question. The notion of what a playable actually represents these days, because
even like a beta, right? Like, because the thing is, when I refer to it, I think of like the couple of games I mentioned. You have Helix, you have Pirate Nation, who has their beta launched, and you have Pixel Farmland, where you're able to play things like that. So even just a beta.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of systems in the thing that we're building, and there isn't going to be a point imminently where you can just dive in and all those systems are there. But we kind of see this as like a wider product than that, if you like. What constitutes play in Web3 is staking play, for example. There's community stuff play. So we're not thinking about it in the way of a box launch, sort of in old terms. We're thinking of it in how do we build this thing up piece by piece as an entertainment system for people. We will at some point have releases where you can play parts of those systems. But the whole thing altogether, I don't think there's a point where all of that comes on a line at the same time. I think this is something that we kind of build out over time,
piece by piece. And even just when I was reading I think it was in the white paper from when I was reading, it's I guess they'll be released in stages, right? Like the whole map won't be released all at once. It will be released in like you have your city, and then you have the suburbs unlock later, and then constantly different areas on the map will start unlocking, I guess, as you guys develop.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep on pushing out more pieces of it, and hopefully more ways for people to interact. Because I mean, as I was saying before, we're building an open world society, right? And that can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean driving around in a street. It can mean a lot of other things also. So what we want to do is foster this world building, this sense of players being a citizen. And there's a number of ways we can do that. But I mean, I couldn't put a date on that question right now.
No, thank you for answering, man. It's going to be interesting to see how you guys grow and see what you guys are going to come up with. It's exciting.
Yeah, cheers.
Awesome. We appreciate your questions.
All right, boys, I'm going to step down. I'll be listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Cheers.
All right. So we're almost coming to the end. So I'll accept one more person, and that will be the last question. There's quite a few other people that would like to come on stage, but unfortunately we won't have time. But we'll for sure have another EMA in the future. So now I'm inviting Oreb, assuming that's how you pronounce it. So welcome. You're muted, by the way, just in case you don't know.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thanks for bringing me up. That was a nice AMA. Thanks to you all. So I'm asking this question for every project, in Web3. As I read your project and research about your project, I saw you will use your in-game token to reward player for doing jobs or something like that. So why don't you use just NFTs to reward players and don't using these tokens? Because the balancing token is hard job, and we have too many failures in this aspect, and your game could be dead for this. That's we're all aware of. So can you tell me what's the reason and what's your plan to balance this your in-game economy?
Okay.
Paul, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I'll have a crack at that. It's a good question. I mean, we're mindful of the fact that it adds complexity. We need a currency because it gives us a lot more flexibility in the systems that we're working with. We'll have NFTs as well. How we balance that? I mean, these are all very live issues for us. This is stuff that we're working on right now. All I can say really is we're mindful of the complexity of it. So we're in the fortunate position of being able to see other projects work through some of these issues, and it's just work, right? If you're asking why we would want a token, because it's a useful thing for us. It's the core of an economy.
Right, and just to add to what Paul said.
Can I ask another one?
Yeah. Sorry. So just to kind of add another thing that Paul said is that a lot of the failures kind of within this space have been done, which quite honestly we just without a lot of thought. Like a lot of people just want to make the game very economically appealing, which then is kind of what causes the massive inflation. So even though it's definitely a complex issue that we're going to have to tackle, we also benefit from the fact that we know how this tends to play out if you put very little thought into it. So the tokenomics will be created with that in mind, because precisely as Paul said, we do need the token because it's useful. So whatever way we can make it in a way that is sustainable in the long term, then that's how it's going to be developed. But you had another question, and I interrupted you. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think that sustainability word is the key here. I mean, we're definitely trying to avoid the system whereby it kind of Ponzi's out. We're trying to create a sustainable economy that turns over properly. I mean, it's not it's not the easiest challenge in the world, but that's part of the fun of it, right?
Exactly, that's the hardest challenge in the world because the world economy has its own issues. So
Yeah.
here I have a suggestion for in-game economy. I don't know, just think about it. You can use your token as your governance token and reward players in tournaments or some rare quests or events, not reward them daily. You know what I mean? So if you
Right.
reward them daily, they're just playing for the rewards, and this will go on. And when the token price go down, and no one gonna play the game. And in the first step, the game should be fun to play, and people come to play this game for fun, not for earning rewards. And when you add the earning by doing jobs, this will make it exactly play to earn. And the play to earns, I don't like them. You know, this is. I want to know.
I mean, it kind of depends on, if there's enough utility on the other side of the coin, doesn't it? I mean, what you're do you have the right kind of incentives to sink that currency? And what are the other, areas of utility for it, such as the governance? So, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. What we're looking for is balance. What we're looking for is sustainability. And, that's just the job we've got to do.
Right. Yeah.
I think also just worth mentioning that there's yeah, and I guess this was touched upon in some of the earlier questions about when will the token come out and stuff like that. Like, we caveat pretty clearly in the white paper that the tokenomics is subject to change. And I mentioned earlier that or Paul mentioned that we're in talks with a lot of people, both from the kind of the Web3 side on the tokenomics side, but also from the game economy side, from traditional game economy design. And so we're as Paul said, this is a live discussion. We're definitely not locked in to any way of doing things, and we're to the question that the previous person asked us, we're embracing the fact that this space changes daily, and we're using the learnings that we're drinking through a fire hose with regards to learnings, and we're definitely implementing those learnings as we go.
Right.
Yes.
And
we are building for fun. We're not building as a kind of an earning machine. We're building a game that is going to be fun for players.
Exactly. That's what a lot of what the Sprawl is about, is to actually make a game that's fun and engaging. Sorry, and then kind of the economics is just a part that's useful, but that's not why players are playing the game. And also, I would add that a lot of times people tend to view things in black and white, and a lot of these things aren't binary. So like, just because you have a token that you use and that you're rewarding players, that doesn't automatically mean that the token is gonna crash just by the fact that there's a token. Like, it's way more nuanced than that. It depends a lot on the token sinks, like Paul was saying, like what type of incentives do you have, and also how much are you giving out. Like those things matter a lot. Like, and it's a gradient. It's not just a binary.
And how you're giving it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not like token versus no token. It's a lot more complex than that. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, I really appreciate you. I'm looking forward into your project, and I'm kind of excited about this channel. But there is another question. I don't know you have enough time to answer that, because I asked a lot. I'm really sorry for that. But if you balance the in-game economy and balance the token, so how do you want to manage whales' behavior for dumping and pumping the token? That's another issue we have with tokens, and especially in-game currencies.
How do we want to manage whales' behavior? Well, it depends what kind of behavior you're talking about, really. I mean, if the main utility of the token is governance, then there's only so much you can't buy your way to governance across the very broad system. It's not set up like that. You'll be powerful within a certain context, but not within a certain other context. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, but we just have to put the rails in the right places, and that's a matter of design, and it's just a matter of ongoing design for us.
Fair enough. Yeah, I get it. Just need to more work on the economy. Just that's all I wanted to say, because I care about Web3 projects, especially games, because I'm a gamer since I was 4. I played too many games, and I really want to see the brighter future for Web3 games, and especially Sprawl.
Right.
Thanks for answering my questions. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your questions. They're
Thank
really
you.
good.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. These are the questions that keep me up at night also.
Right. All right. So we're coming to an end now. So I appreciate everyone that came. I think it went really well, and I think it just helps if the community understands kind of some of the issues that we're working on, and kind of some of the announcements. I know that some things are a bit vague, but I promise that the details will come soon. Also, there's quite a few people that are requesting to speak. Obviously, we won't have time for it, unfortunately, but we'll definitely have another EMA, and we'll announce that with plenty of time in advance. So yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you
Sorry
in the
for
next
the
one.
folks with their hands up. We'll talk to you again.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Right.
See you. Bye.
Thanks, then. Bye-bye.